it is neat that you can see the hand of God in and how he orchestrates things. So if there's like one thing from your journey through foster care and adoption, which you didn't go into it with the mindset of, well, you did want to adopt eventually, but it wasn't like you were only fostering to adopt.
No, we were open to whatever, I say whatever God led us to, if that was going to be multiple children over, years and years, or if it was going to be one, whatever God's.
Yeah, the odds of you adopting the first set of children that come your way is just incredibly unlikely.
Yes.
Because, for those who don't know, the goal of foster care is reunification, always. And I think that's something important if anybody's considering foster care, that they know, even though you guys have an amazing success story of, including biological family, you have good relationships with some of the biological family. I think it's important for people to know going into it, you don't really want to root for a biological family to fail.
No, not at all.
And your children, you ended up adopting 3 of the 4. Share a little bit about that, because just the fact that there was a sibling set of 4 that came to us, but the transitions that happened and just, I was going to ask you, how have you seen God's hand? But I really feel like what ended up happening with these 4 children, because I did not adopt.
Right.
So share a little bit about how that happened, because that was God.
Yeah, it was definitely, the first night, I don't know if you remember this, I'm sure you do, but the first night you had the 2 youngest and I had the 2 oldest, and we just knew the very first night one of the youngest was a boy, and you didn't have any boys in your family. And I had a son and my husband, and at the time you were fostering as a single parent.
Yeah.
So it just made more sense for the boy to come and live with us so that he could have a brother and a father figure in the home. And so then the oldest daughter went to live at your house.
So I had the oldest and the youngest.
Yep, you had the oldest and youngest, and I had the 2 middle. And it just became kind of apparent after several months that the oldest needed more therapeutic foster care, which is like a level up. It's from your basic family foster care to somebody who's more trained in intensive trauma and has more time to give to intensive therapy services for the child.
Right.
And so the oldest transitioned from your house to a therapeutic foster placement, and that was hard.
That was
very hard for I think all of us.
It was 5 months after they had came to us. So we tried making it work for 5 months when we realized, okay, this is just not really working. Not for the child, not for the family,
right.
All across the board. And that was such a hard decision.
It was.
I know for me, I felt like a failure.
Yeah.
It was like, man, I said that I was going to do this and I just can't do this. But God was so faithful.
Absolutely.
So you tell where she ended up going.
So she ended up going to a place about 2 hours from where we live, to a therapeutic foster home, who was an amazing, amazing veteran foster mom who had done foster care for teenage girls for a long time. And at the time, this young lady was not a teenager,
but a preteen.
But she took her in, and during that time, it was a total God wink. I'm just going to say Melanie. Melanie took her in, and Melanie had just lost her father. So it was kind of a healing moment for her to be able to pour back into somebody else.
Yeah.
But then also, as she's transitioned to this place about 2 hours from our house, she starts school at this, in this city, and she meets this amazing woman who becomes her PE teacher. And Pollyann. So long story short, Pollyann, the very first day of class, says, "Hey, introduce yourself." And so our little girl says, "Hey, my name is, and I'm from Albemarle." And immediately, Pollyann just lights up, and she's like, "No way, I'm from Albemarle." So it's a total God thing.
Yeah.
And then,
and Pollyann already had a heart for fostering. Yep. They had never fostered before, but she and her husband had worked at a camp that is for children who are in foster care.
Absolutely. So she started the wheels working, and she ended up taking placement of the oldest sibling while we were still kind of working through the process of, what's the next steps for us.
Yeah.
And then when we found out in, I guess it was maybe late 2019.
Yeah.
we found out that reunification was not going to be a possibility.
Right.
So the ultimate goal had then been changed to adoption instead of reunification.
Right.
And I think you and I discussed it and realized that if at all possible, we'd like to keep the other 3 siblings together.
Right.
So that's when my husband and I prayed about it and welcomed Lily to our house.
Yeah.
In 2020.
Yeah.
The beginning of 2020.
Yeah, it was right when we were getting married.
Mm-hmm.
And just the way that God lined things up with the time frames was so perfect because, you know, TJ and I were getting ready to blend our family and knew that the dynamics would already be challenging for a blended family, much less when you blend like now it's yours, mine, and extra, and not having the space and the home. Really wanting to focus on like taking a season to, you know, focus on our family unit and what God was building with us. And the fact that these kids have been able to stay together when they're older kids in the foster care system, which is already, you know, it's
unheard of.
Yeah, it's unheard of.
Yeah.
So the fact that they were able to stay together, the fact that she ended up in a PE class at a random school 2 hours away, and met Pollyann, who her and her husband David were willing to go through the process to become not only her foster parents but her adopted parents.
And then they moved back here. They're 15 minutes down the road.
Yeah, and then they move just down the road and can be a part of our church family, can be a part of birthday parties. It's a success story that's unheard of, you know, and every single person that was kind of like along the way, I think of Melanie's part and the social worker's part and just everybody who was a part of the process. I think that there's people who say there's no God. I'm like, this story alone is like only God could do that.
Only
you know?
God.